Welcome to This Explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled you're hanging out with us today. If you've got a thing for human ingenuity, mind-blowing engineering, and, the echoes of history, well, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're diving into the ultimate symbols of ancient ambition. We're talking about massive, gravity-defying structures that push the very limits of human imagination. Monuments so grand, they literally became legends.
Picture this. It's a time when the ancient Mediterranean was this bustling, chaotic web connected by trade, warfare, and pilgrimage. You've got merchant vessels cutting across the sea, desert caravans constantly on the move, and everyday travelers hauling scrolls and goods down dusty stone roads. And as all these people crossed paths in noisy ports and crowded marketplaces, these incredible rumors just started spreading like wildfire. Whispers of 7 distinct monuments scattered across entirely different empires that seemed, well, frankly, completely impossible to build.
Okay, let's dive right into this and map these out. Geographically, these wonders were all over the place. They spanned Egypt, Greece, Asia Minor, and the ancient Near East. We're talking about the Great Pyramid and the towering Lighthouse down in Egypt, the almost mythical Hanging Gardens over in Babylon, and then sweeping through Greece and Asia Minor with the statue of Zeus, the Temple of Artemis, the Mausoleum, and the Colossus. They didn't just belong to one single empire. They were the collective pride of the entire ancient Mediterranean world.
Section 1. The Survivor and the Mystery, Giza and Babylon.
So, these first two wonders, they sit at absolute opposite ends of reality. On one hand, we've got the Great Pyramid of Giza. Its status? Still standing today. The evidence? Totally undeniable. I mean, we can literally book a flight, walk right up to it, and touch the stones. But then, we have the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Its status is entirely lost to history. And actually, what's even wilder is that its very existence is heavily debated by archaeologists right now. One is quite literally the most permanent structure in human history, while the other, it might just be a really beautiful ancient myth. Let's take a closer look at our survivor. The Great Pyramid of Giza was built for the Egyptian pharaoh Khufu way over 4,000 years ago. 4 millennia. It is by far the oldest of the 7 wonders, and, remarkably, it was the only one still standing 1,000 years after all the rest had totally vanished. And hey, I want to quickly squash a major historical misconception right here. This whole thing wasn't built by some simplistic slave labor system, not at all. Pulling this off required extraordinary organization, hyper-advanced mathematics, precise measuring tools, and the highly coordinated paid labor of thousands of specialized workers. It was just an absolute masterclass in ancient engineering. But on the flip side, we run into this massive historical mystery. Did the Hanging Gardens of Babylon actually exist? Ancient writers definitely painted a vivid picture. They talked about this breathtaking vertical oasis where elevated terraces and complex irrigation channels let lush trees and vines just burst upward high above the mud brick architecture of Babylon. They said it created this jaw-dropping contrast with the dry desert all around it. But here's the kicker. Despite all those written accounts, archaeologists have been digging through ancient clay tablets and ruins for decades, and they have never found any conclusive, hard proof that they were real.
Section 2. Temples, gods, and tombs, sacred ancient marvels.
The ancient world was just full of fascinating dualities. And the Temple of Artemis at Ephesus is the perfect example of this. This wasn't some quiet little sanctuary. It was a massive, sprawling complex with these gigantic marble columns and monumental staircases. But what you really need to take away from this is its wild history of destruction and rebuild. It was destroyed and rebuilt multiple times. And that cycle perfectly captures 2 things. First, the staggering, almost unbelievable wealth of Ephesus. They could literally afford to keep rebuilding it. And second, the chaotic, inherent instability of the ancient world. Let's head over to Greece and see how this next structure takes that idea of ancient grandeur to a whole new level. The statue of Zeus at Olympia was not just a statue tucked away somewhere in isolation. Olympia itself was this bustling, vibrant epicenter of athletes, pilgrims, and grand religious ceremonies. Picture runners, wrestlers, and these massive, elaborate processions everywhere. And right inside the sacred temple sat this colossal, seated figure of Zeus, crafted by the legendary Greek sculptor Phidias. It was covered in brilliant gold and ivory-like surfaces, and its sheer, towering scale basically forced any ancient worshiper to gaze upward in absolute stunning awe. Now, what's really fascinating here is a lingering linguistic legacy that you and I still use every single day. Over at ancient Halicarnassus, sculptors carved this massive stone base covered in tall columns and friezes to create a monumental tomb. It was built for a Carian ruler named Mausolus, along with his wife Artemisia. This monument was so breathtaking and its fame spread so far across the ancient world that his very name, Mausolus, literally gave birth to the word mausoleum. Yep, a term we still use right now for pretty much any monumental tomb. How cool is that?
Section 3. Giants of the Coast. Guiding Ancient Ships.
Okay, we need to clear up one of the biggest popular myths in history right now. For centuries, people have imagined the Colossus of Rhodes, which was this gigantic bronze statue dedicated to the sun god Helios, standing tall with one leg on each side of the harbor, with ships actually sailing right between its legs. Honestly, it's a great visual, but that is purely a myth. The fact is, the statue stood firmly on a substantial, massive pedestal right near the harbor entrance or the waterfront. So no, it didn't straddle the water, but its genuine, awe-inspiring scale, towering over the busy stone quays and merchant ships, still made it an absolute wonder. Well, at least until a powerful earthquake ultimately brought the bronze giant crashing down.
Across the Mediterranean, over in Egypt, stood another incredible coastal giant, the Lighthouse of Alexandria, also known as the Pharos. Just try to picture a pitch-black Mediterranean sea at night, with ships desperately trying to navigate into one of the ancient world's greatest ports. Rising high above the harbor was this towering, multi-level stone structure with a massive beacon of fire burning brightly at the very summit, cutting through the smoke and sea mist. And look, this wasn't just a practical navigational tool. It was the ultimate shining symbol of Alexandria's immense maritime power, its wealth, and its scholarly dominance.
Section 4. Destruction and Legacy. The Enduring Wonders. So the really crucial point to understand here is that there wasn't just one single apocalyptic event that wiped all these magnificent structures off the map. It was a slow, relentless combination of forces. The Colossus and the Pharos, they fell victim to devastating earthquakes. The Temple of Artemis faced raging, uncontrollable fires. Others were dismantled by war and conquest, lost to abandoned cities and shifting coastlines, or simply just eroded by the relentless passage of centuries. Ultimately, a mix of natural disasters and human conflict slowly transformed these grand monuments back into dust and broken stone.
And that brings us to a core understanding of exactly why we are still talking about them today. Consider this thought for a second. The Seven Wonders were more than monuments. They represented the ancient world's ambition to build higher, larger, richer, and more spectacularly than anyone had imagined. Even though these structures were pieced together with ancient tools, raw stone, and heavy bronze, their true lasting legacy isn't really the physical material. Their legacy is the absolute standard they set for human ambition. They showed us the dizzying heights of what we can achieve when we completely push the boundaries of engineering and art.
Today, out of those original 7, only the Great Pyramid survives in any substantial form. The rest of this totally lost world really only survives through scattered archaeological fragments, the ancient writings of those travelers we talked about at the very beginning, and of course, centuries of our collective human imagination. By the way, I definitely want to take a quick moment to thank Historon1 for the incredible historical research and cinematic narrative that made this explainer possible.
I want to leave you with one final thought to really spark your imagination as we wrap things up today. If you could somehow step back in time, if you could walk those dusty, ancient stone roads, sail the Mediterranean, and stand in the shadow of just one of these monumental achievements, which wonder would you have visited? Think about it. Thank you so much for hanging out and learning with me today, and I'll see you in the next explainer.